Well, that sucks. Welcome into the Skol Purple podcast. Tough way to finish the season for the Minnesota Vikings. Carson and Tony here with the Skol Purple podcast. Glad to be here with you, but unfortunately, under some kind of tough circumstances. But we are going to talk about this
Carson,
matchup
I don't know if you
between.
can. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
Feels like the
Testing.
Vikings season as it ends is kind of ending with my audio apparently. So let me figure that out. You
Yes.
keep talking here, and I'll give you the thumbs up when I can hear you.
All right. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. We're in like.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, we can hear you
Still hear
loud
me?
and clear.
Still hear me? Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
we got you.
It's as I said, coming in. This sucks. Not how you wanted the season to end, but obviously it was going to end at some point, but hopefully it was going to be in the Super Bowl. Obviously, that's the ultimate goal. But I think there's a lot of thoughts we have, and we will hopefully get David in here to give his thoughts as well. But we'll get talking about this tough end to the season. Lots of thoughts I have, and boy, oh boy, do I have thoughts heading into this offseason now. I know it's hard to really just turn that page but so quickly, but we're going to try and do that this week, I think, come up with some content for y'all. So let's go ahead and roll the intro, and we'll get this thing started. It's the Fan Express line on the Skol Purple podcast.
Win or lose, at the Skol Purple podcast, we are here to analyze the game, answer your questions, cry with you, or celebrate together. It's the Fan Express line, presented by the Skol Purple podcast. And it starts now.
Well, it's definitely the cry with you part today of the Skol Purple podcast from the intro. I'm not gonna cry, but you know what I mean. We're upset, obviously, that this is the way the season ended. And Tony, before I get into too much, before that final drive, I thought Kirk Cousins played an outstanding game. I really did. I thought he played outstanding today. And that final throw on 4th and 8 to TJ Hawkinson, 5 yards or more short of the first down, with a safety glued to him. What are you doing? It's like the conservative Kirk came out at the worst possible time. And I know that didn't lose you the game. I mean, it could have definitely ended differently, but after that point, but that was one of the things that just obviously stood out because it was right at the end. But my goodness, what are you doing, Kirk? Like I said, I thought he played really well to start this game. And for probably 3.5 quarters or so of this game, I thought he played well. And that final throw was just like, what are you doing? So curious to hear your thoughts on that final throw from Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously my thought as well. I mean, that's about all I can think about really for the last, I'd say few minutes. I suppose it's been maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes since the game has ended, but I just was scratching my head, and really it's just what really stinks is that it felt like, I know that we plan on doing a little bit of a season recap at some point, but boy, it felt like all season long we've been saying, hasn't it been nice that Kirk has been able to let loose a little bit? We're seeing him take chances. We're seeing him take risks. And then it felt like in that one play, and I get it's just one play, but we got conservative Kirk when the game is on the line, 4th and 8. You can't throw behind the sticks. Anything that is not at least at the sticks or past the sticks is a losing football throw. So don't make it. I'd rather have him throw the ball up and try to hit the top of the US Bank Stadium and see where it lands than do what he did, because at least that would have given somebody a chance.
Toss it up like he did in the Buffalo game. Toss it up like he did in the Buffalo game. What do you have to lose?
Yeah,
that's
my
chance. First takeaway.
See what can happen. Yeah,
David, what are your thoughts?
So
I was just mentioning
it was what it was.
Yep. David, we were just talking about the final play where Kirk checked it down. Conservative Kirk showed up at the worst possible time. Like I was saying before you got on here, I was saying I thought Kirk played really well for 3.5 quarters of this game, and then it just wasn't there on that final throw. I don't know if his brain short-circuited or like he just didn't think what he was trying to do there, just went for the open guy, and then he was like, oh crap, the game's on the line, I need to throw this for a first down, and he didn't do it. What are your thoughts on that final play there?
Check down Kirk showed up in the worst moment. I mean, going into the game, I really thought the defense was going to be the problem, which it was, and that happened. But you just don't throw it there. I mean, at the end of the game, you need 8 yards. Every route at that point should be 9 yards and more. Like I don't understand why you throw it there. That's just check down Kirk at his best. We can say the Kirk change, Kirk ducking or whatever. This is when it counted. Today it counted the most, and you threw it short for the sticks. Like,
Now, before we continue to make this a roast Kirk party, let's talk a little bit about Kevin O'Connell here.
Fire.
Yeah, fire. Get him out of here. Couldn't win a playoff game. I think want to mention everybody. I see quite a few people in here. Make sure to send in your comments down below. Kirk wasn't going to jeopardize his completion percentage. Needs those garbage throws. Good game. Much love from New York. Appreciate that, Louie. But it
was a hard-fought game with the Giants.
Yeah. So I want to just say Kevin O'Connell, that last fourth quarter, and then that false start by Christian Darrisaw just screwed things over too on that fourth down quarterback sneak. But there was some conservative play calling. That final drive before the Vikings got that final opportunity, when they punted it back to the Giants with like 7 minutes, they threw 2 screen passes when the screen game has literally been one of the worst things about this team all season long. And I don't know why they all of a sudden, like that wasn't part of their game plan, like for what worked early on in the game. And then all of a sudden, let's go ahead and throw some screen passes here. I didn't get that on that second to final drive. And they went away from the run game quite a bit too. Not that it was working, but I mean, it was a little bit though. Yeah, I have to look and see what Dalvin's yards per carry was, but definitely some questionable play calling by KOC. That 3rd down and 1 early in the game, 3rd down and short when they tried that trick play. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, exactly. Make sure to get your comments in. What did you think were the key parts of this game? Appreciate everybody being in here. Skol Purple Podcast, the Fan Express line here after the Vikings fall to the Giants 31-24. Appreciate if you would subscribe and like this video. David, any other thoughts on Kevin O'Connell and his play calling?
I think they lost the game when they ran that trick play, in my opinion. Because if you go down the field there and you keep the drive going, you're going to give your defensive time to catch their breath, and you're keeping them off the field. Some of the plays that Kevin O'Connell called, he didn't call them knowing what kind of defense he had. If you ran that trick play, I'm not sure if maybe JJ was looking down the field for anybody else and couldn't find anybody, but it's 3rd and 1. Just run the ball. You got CJ Ham, just run the ball. Stop being cute. And that's just what it just came to fruition. That's what a couple of other teams been saying that about us all year, that we're just too cute, and you can't do that. Like, I'm going to give Kevin O'Connell this year to figure things out because it's his first year, and the play caller needs to be a whole lot better. And it just goes back to basically like what I was thinking before. Sometimes you get what you ask for. Everybody wanted to run Zimmer out of there because the defense got bad and the offense was terrible. But now the offense is good and defense is terrible. So we need a medium balance, please.
Well, the defense wasn't even good the last couple of years, but go ahead, Tony.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I would say this, and this is kind of I have two things. The defense is so bad that it's just not winning football. I mean, if we really look at it, the Vikings scored 24 points today. It's not easy to score 24 points. It's not that the Giants have a horrible defense. They actually have a pretty decent defense. They've won a lot of their games with defense and the ground and pound approach. So the fact that we scored 24 points, I don't see that all that bad. Certainly here and there we can nitpick. I didn't like the trick play again. It was just a bad design. I don't mind the creativeness. I just thought it was just a crappy play design. But the defense is so bad, it kneecaps our offense. Our offense cannot win games by always having to score 30 plus points. And until they fix that defense, it kind of doesn't matter how good the offense is, because it's just we're always going to be one-dimensional because we can't rely on the run, because you can't take that much time off the clock because your defense can't stop anyone. It's so bad. I think it's a mix of personnel. I think it's a mix of scheme and personnel. So we'll see what happens. I think I would be very surprised if Donatel is running this defense next year. Look, I get growing pains happen, but it was
tomorrow.
It was bad. And as much as and really, we should celebrate how good this season has been and how much fun we've all had during the season. Again, not to just be negative. This is the time to be negative. The defense is bad. So bad that you need wholesale changes. So, like I said, I put a lot on Kirk's shoulders, especially at that last play. The play calling wasn't great, but at the end of the day, the key to today's loss was the defense. It was not the offense. The offense did enough. The defense was horrible.
Horrible.
Yeah, and that's the way it's been all season. But you know what? If you're Kevin O'Connell, you should have known that the defense was not going to be good today. Yeah, now you maybe were hoping to get a turnover. Giants did a great job of protecting the ball. I think there was a few times when he got a little tight and didn't want to go for some aggressive play calling in that second half, and maybe in that first half a little bit too. Like even those screens when they were backed up a little bit, I think he kind of got a little tight because we're backed up here a little bit. I don't want Kirk to throw a pick, or I don't want to have a strip sack or something. I don't know. I just felt like, with as bad as this defense is, you have to try everything in your power on offense to go down the field and score, and not just score a field goal, score a touchdown. And obviously, like I said, that false start on that quarterback sneak by Darisaw, which, by the way, I think O'Connell was upset on that because they missed the same thing on a Giants touchdown early in the game. And he was like, okay, where was that earlier? And they didn't call that one. So the NFL officiating, let's just call that out. Not just for this game. This whole weekend has been absolutely atrocious. Absolutely terrible. Can we expect anything less? Not really, but it's the NFL. But anyways, question I have for you guys here. I know we've talked at length on this show. It's all over Vikings Twitter. It's all over in the Vikings universe, whatever. Is the Vikings defensive struggles fully on Ed Donatel? I think he's a big part of it, but I don't think that this defense has the players to compete with an offense, even just like the Giants have. Like the speed that the Giants have compared to what the Vikings have on defense, you could just tell it was a disadvantage from the get-go. And that's why we need to see more of these older players start to get thrown out. I know it sucks because we've watched some of these players play for a long time. Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, but Do you think that some of these players, I'll throw it to you first, Tony, and then let David get in, but do you think some of these players need to be traded or released or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. See, I think for me, when I think of maybe some of the aging players, there's three players that I think of, and I have different opinions on all three. I think that uh, first player, I think Kendricks, and my elevator pitch with Kendricks is that I think the scheme hurts him. I think he's asked to do too much, and I think he gets put out on an island. And I just don't think it's a good fit for Kendricks. On top of the fact that, yeah, he might be getting a little older, but I don't think he's missing enough of a step that he should look this out of position. I honestly think it's a scheme problem. With Peterson, I think that he is getting older. He's certainly, lost a step, but at the same time, he's not a guy that's going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's the value we have with Patrick Peterson. Is he's not a guy that's going to blow a lot of coverages. He just might not have the speed and the agility to necessarily hang with top tier talent anymore. And then I think the third is Harrison Smith. I think Harrison Smith kind of suffers from a little bit of what Patrick Peterson has going on and a little bit of what Eric Kendricks has going on. A big benefit that we get from Harrison Smith is his ability to come up to the line and play the run or to be aggressive at the line. And as we know, Ed Donatel doesn't like to bring pressure for whatever reason. And I'm not saying that Harrison Smith is a liability in coverage. It's just he's getting older. And at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's why he's made a lot of Pro Bowls. I think his coverage skills have been good, but his aggressive play at the line and his versatility around the line of scrimmage is what made him his money throughout the years. So you take that away, and then he kind of just becomes another safety. So, I don't know. My opinion is that I think it's what it's going to come down to the cap. What kind of cap hits are we talking about? We get Booth back next year. Obviously seen to a degree. I'm actually more excited about what Booth might bring than Seen, only because I think that Seen, it was concerning to me that we didn't really see him show up on the map too much in training camp and then even in preseason before he got hurt. And I know you could kind of say the same thing about Booth, but there were some grumblings that Booth might have been jostling for a starting position there. So I don't know. My opinion is that this defense needs an overhaul in scheme. We're going to need to be heavy in the draft with some defensive players. And honestly, it might take losing some pieces on the offense to free up equity to invest in the defense. So we'll see.
Go ahead there, David.
I think, and this is going to be wild here, guys. Bear with me. Hope you guys can follow me. I think Donatel is an idiot. He should be fired. And I think Daniels needs to be fired. You need to fire your defensive coordinator and your special teams coordinator. You know why? Because your first pick in the draft broke his leg on the kickoff. Your fastest linebacker got a concussion today on a kickoff. Why are these guys playing special teams? I guarantee you, if any other DC is out there, those guys would have been playing a whole lot more. Lewis Seen would have been playing way more than Bynum, and we would have seen Booth a whole lot more than Cam. That's where the problem is. You have the personnel. I like to have older guys because they're battle tested. But when you draft younger guys to take those positions and they don't play and they get hurt during the kickoff, that's coaching.
Yep.
That's coaching. Because if you look at the draft picks, Lewis Seen, gone, broke his leg. We don't even know if he's going to ever come back and be the same player he was at Georgia. Asamoah, you're getting torched by Daniel Jones all game. Why is he even in the kickoff at this game when he's your fastest linebacker? And he's been playing well the past couple of weeks.
Yep.
That's Ed Donatel, and you really have to think about it like that. We can say that Patrick Peterson is behind his prime, and Eric Kendricks is maybe playing out of position. He's asking to do too much, but the guys that you drafted to help them are getting hurt on the kickoffs.
Yep. Appreciate Mandrick getting in the comment section. He's been giving his thoughts. Yeah, I didn't think Adam Thielen was as absent as he has been today. I thought he made a few big time catches that we needed him for, but I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it seemed like right after he would make a catch, he would go straight for the sideline, and it's like, man, do we really need to? Are we at the point where we're having to sub him out because he's that tired? Like, is that where we're at? I love the man. I loved what he's done for this team, but like, you got to be able to stay out there. And the fact that the Giants, let me see the time of possession here, because it seems like the Giants were on the field for more than the Vikings, at least in that first half. I know that was a fact because the Giants took over 10 minutes on that one drive. But it just seems like the Vikings are taking him out. 33 minutes for the Giants' time of possession compared to the Vikings of 26. Yeah, Adam Thielen, we've talked about it before. It's time to move on. Do you think Adam Thielen, like I heard somebody say today, maybe Adam Thielen gets the not cut, but gets retired or does retire, I should say. Is there any chance you think gets retired? The Giants retired him. David, let's go back to you. Adam Thielen, do you think there's a chance he retires, or should he get out of here?
I mean, it depends on how you're going to, move the money around. If you're going to restructure him just like you did, then he's going to stay for a couple of years. But maybe it might be time just to outright cut him right now and just go with the younger guys and see what's going to happen, because they're going to make mistakes. But at the same time, guys like Jalen Naylor, they need to go out there and actually make the mistakes so they can learn how to get better. Putting Adam Thielen out there, he doesn't really have the speed that he used to have, and he just doesn't have the separation anymore. It's kind of a detriment. Like the 1-2 punches is JJ and TJ. Adam Thielen is nowhere to be found, and it's kind of, I'm not gonna say it's sad because it's football. You lose a step here and there. I mean, you might have to have a down season next year just to clear money on all these older contracts on offense. There's just that might be the best thing. And Irv Smith can't catch. He needs to be off the team too. Because I see
hey, now he made a touchdown grab. Give Irv a break. That throw was a hard play to make. Like that was a high throw. I'm not saying Irv is great or anything, but that was a high throw. He didn't come down with it. I get that, but come on, we've got to stop murdering people every time they drop one pass. My goodness. Vikings Twitter just, buy Irv. Oh, good job, Irv, after the touchdown.
It's like, you know what it is? The thing with Irv Smith, he wears the wrong number. You can't.
He shouldn't be wearing 84. I agree. That should be in the rafters
if
right
had
now.
Like 86 or something, we'd be like, oh, the guy's okay. He's out there trying, but you wear 84 and you're dropping passes. Yeah, it's like we're number 80 dropping passes.
It is. That is a very good point. And so maybe he'll just turn it to 82 or 81, not 80. We can't have him wearing Chris Carter's number.
Well, what's Troy Williams' number? 81 or something like that?
Yeah.
That guy dropped a lot of passes. He can be the next Troy Williamson.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But no, I think another thing is that, we've talked about Kevin O'Connell's play calling at length at different times, but let's not forget this is his first year calling plays, and who knows how long, maybe ever. And you know what? For the most part, I thought he's done a good job, but there's always a few moments in the game where it's like, what are you doing there, buddy? And there was a few of those moments in that second half. Tony, did you want to comment on Adam Thielen and Kevin O'Connell's play calling?
As far as Thielen is concerned, I mean, we've said this how many times on this podcast. He's lost a step. He can't create separation anymore. Here, and I know it's just one play, but here's an example of where I think Thielen might know where he's at in his career. When he caught that pass up the sideline late in the game, this is when we were going to tie it up. I believe, what was it? We were going to tie it up 24-24. And he had one guy to beat. He had a safety over the top, so behind the corner, and he got that post pattern, and or was it a flag? He's up the sideline, and instead of trying to make a move, maybe move inside, or even just lower his head to get a few more yards to get us maybe inside the 10, he just kind of stepped out about 4 yards before contact. And I thought, you know what? That's about where he's at. And I think he kind of knows that. Like, he's just not going to make that play. Because the thing is with Thielen, his bread and butter was never making those splashy plays anyway. But at least he would try, because he had enough in there where he might slip past every once in a while. And now I think he's realizing that about all he has left is about just maybe enough speed to be serviceable, and then good hands. That's about where he's at. And it's sad to see, because, we all love Thielen. I think he's going to be on this team next year just because of that. I did look; it's like a $13 million cap hit. So I would be very surprised if he wasn't on the team next year, just because you're not saving anything. And I think his veteran leadership is worth more than what you would save, if that makes sense. And so I like that. I think that he'll be around for that. And as far as O'Connell's concerned, like I said, there were a few things here and there that I didn't like. I think offensively we did enough. So while I could be really nitpicky, that's not what lost us the game. So, I'll leave it at that. I put this one on the defense.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I keep going back to the defense, and it's, it puts Kevin O'Connell and the offense in a really tough spot. And I've talked about this a couple of times, I think, on this show, is that you have to be perfect now, because you don't know if that defense of yours is going to get a stop. And you should be just counting on them not getting a stop, because that's mostly what they've done all season long, unless they get some sort of a turnover. And you had a kind of a fluke comeback, almost win by Miami today. Basically, the Dolphins did exactly what the Vikings did against Buffalo, where they were down by 17, got some turnovers, and the Vikings actually pulled it out. Dolphins didn't. But you cannot expect to get turnovers every game to keep you in the game or to go and win the game. And ultimately, these one-score games, 11-0 in the regular season, you can't count on that sustaining itself. And we talked about that how many times on this show, of the sustainability of these one-score wins, and eventually it bites you in the butt, and it happened to be in the postseason. David, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just feel that way too. Going into the game, I thought special teams, the kicking wise, Greg Dillon was going to miss some kicks, and we were going to have to be chasing points, but that didn't happen. But I'm going to probably soak today, and then I'll be over it tomorrow, because the real season starts tomorrow. Like, if we believe in Kevin O'Connell and we believe in Kwesi, let's see what they're going to do. But they can't, continue this run it back. And Kevin O'Connell needs some help with play calling. I mean, this was his first year of play calling, because Sean McVay did it last year. So he's going to get his lumps, and this is what it is. So maybe he can come in and figure some things out in the offseason and be a whole lot better, but something has to change. I'm not sure if you go into the Bears direction where you blow it up and wait till you get money in next year, or you try to figure some things and continue the competitive rebuild. But
yeah, if only the Vikings had the 2017 defense, man. Came too late. The offense got here too late. You can't have them both. Unfortunately, it seems for the Vikings this year. But I don't know. Now we're going to get into the offseason, which, man, I don't know about you guys. It's different now that you do a podcast, now that I'm doing a podcast here with you guys. But it seems like last offseason was so long, partly because we were just making content and we were throwing out ideas, and also doing a coaching change and GM change last year. So it was so long. And now I think that part at least gives us a little bit of like, okay, at least we know that is going to stay the same. But it's a huge offseason. Like a lot of the players, I don't know how many of these players are going to be back next year for this team. And Erica talking about Thielen here a little bit. Yeah, it's been tough for Adam Thielen this year overall. But as we talk about, I think David had mentioned this earlier this week. End of season awards. Let's just talk a little bit about that because it seems weird to talk about it now, but we might as well because the season is over, which again just seems so weird. Like, I thought for sure they'd win one playoff game and then they would probably get boat raced by the 49ers or somebody else. And obviously would have been the Niners if they had won, but yeah, it's hard to do this right now. I think if you give me a week or so, it'd be a lot easier. But I got to say, end of the season awards, obviously for me, offensive player of the year, Justin Jefferson. I don't think you can even question that. MVP candidate won't get it, but fantastic year. Changed the whole complexity of this game. And that was another thing I was going to mention too about this game is Kevin O'Connell and his ability to use Justin Jefferson as a decoy. He did a great job of doing that on some of those touchdowns. The one on Irv Smith where 2 or 3 guys are like, oh, it's Jefferson. Oh, no. And then Irv Smith wide open in the back of the end zone. But, yeah, it was just such a fun season to watch Justin Jefferson. That was one of the fun moments for sure. But I know Tony had mentioned all the things like, yes, it was a successful season in the regular season and that should be celebrated. But at the same time, we want to see the Vikings party with the Lombardi, as we've said. And that's not going to happen this year. And we'll talk more about this in the offseason, but I don't know. This is going to be a long offseason, and I really do think that the NFC North is going to start to change over the next 2 to 3 years and going forward with maybe Rodgers leaving, maybe the Bears and Lions rotating to the top 1 and 2 spots compared to where the Vikings and Packers often were the last 10 plus years. So, but we'll talk more about that. End of season awards. Back to that, getting off track. Justin Jefferson, offensive MVP. Anybody else, anything different on that front?
Nah, JJ all the way.
No.
Yep.
Yeah. It has to be Jefferson.
Yeah.
Yep. Defensive MVP. That's a tough one. I think I'm gonna go with somebody that's underrated, and we've been hearing more people talk about him lately, but I'm gonna go with Duke Shelley, defensive MVP for that last half of the season, but obviously. Defense didn't play well today, which again is why this is so difficult to do today. But at least in the second half of the season, Duke Shelley. I mean, Patrick Peterson overall had a good season. Terrible game today. I'm interested to see his PFF grade. I just did not think Peterson played well today at all. But you could say that about half the defense. So, yeah, I guess that's where I'm going. Kind of an underrated pick. Tony, where would you like to go with your defensive player of the year for the Vikings?
I'm going to go Za'Darius. I think Za'Darius Smith, I know he obviously struggled a little bit later in the year, trying to get pressure, trying to get some consistent, quarterback hits. And I know the sacks kind of dropped off towards the end of the year, but I would say by and large, though, for most of the year, he was the best, if not one of the best, if not the best defensive lineman, we had week in and week out. So no, I'm going to go Za'Darius. I thought he was a great asset to the defense. As bad as that defense was, I guess this is where I kind of landed here. Imagine if we didn't have Za'Darius, especially earlier on in the season. So I think
Yeah.
we would be talking about some games where they could have gotten away with us, gotten away from us, a bit more than they did. So yeah, I'm gonna go Za'Darius.
Yep. Okay. Where would you go here, David?
I don't know. It's just kind of hard to give someone a defensive MVP when they all trash, when they all didn't play good at collectively. I'm probably going to go. I'm going to say Harrison Phillips.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a good pick.
Alvin Tomlinson also an underrated season.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Jericho, we understand we didn't win the Super Bowl. Thanks, buddy.
I love
Appreciate
the trolls. I told everybody, hey, if your team didn't beat my team, don't say anything.
Yeah, I don't even know what Jericho's team is, but anyways.
Well, and I want to say too, what's funny is that we have heard certainly a little bit of trolling here and there, but I have to say, I think we've stayed pretty objective throughout most of the year. The crazy, when we had one loss for many weeks of the season, I know I still stayed pretty consistent. I know Carson knew as well, and David. Every team's fan base would love to go to the Super Bowl, but I was under no illusion that what we were doing was weird and probably not sustainable. And I made it very clear that while I would love it, I still felt like it was pretty unlikely. So I know there might be channels out there, not going to name names, that might be all the rose-colored glasses all the time. I feel like on this show we've been pretty objective about the fact that the Vikings have some weaknesses, and certainly we'd love to see them win every week. But I am not shocked. I said it earlier this week. I think I said it even on this podcast that while I thought the Vikings could game, I was not going to be shocked if we lost this game. I just knew it would be tight either way, and for the most part, it was.
Yep. All right, David, any thoughts? Otherwise, we're going to head on over to the special teams.
I mean, what thought on the defensive player of the year for the Vikings? It was Harrison Phillips. I like that guy.
You went with Phillips.
Yeah, the guy's a good guy, man. I like that guy. So.
Yeah. Seems like a really good locker room, dude.
Yeah. Seems like it. So.
Yep. End of the season awards, moving to special teams. I think Wong Wu, he had one return, but I just can't, on one return, I can't give him a full season award. So I am going to go with the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that looks like he could play linebacker, Ryan Wright. And I don't think he can really go with anybody else. I mean, he had a really good rookie season. It seems like the Vikings have found their punter for the foreseeable future. So maybe, based on how far punters go sometimes, he could be the Vikings punter for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
So Ryan Wright, special teams player of the year for the Vikings. Tony, David, anything different on that front?
Since you gave it to, to the kicker, I'm going to go say Greg Joseph, probably secondary, because they only lost 4 games and he missed a lot of kicks, and he made a lot of kicks when it really counted. So I'll give it to Greg Joseph. I was going to say Ryan Wright also, but I give it to Greg Joseph.
Now, I want to say to Jericho, I was a little overconfident after the Buffalo win because I thought the Vikings were going to lose that game handily, which they could have very well if they hadn't gotten some turnovers, or had one of the greatest catches of all time, Justin Jefferson. But I still had my doubts about this team. I know my guy Rapp, love him, but he is a huge homer and probably was very, very high on the Vikings going to the Super Bowl. Love you, Rapp, but little overconfident sometimes, and then you end up with your your disappointment here, which, I mean, obviously we're all disappointed here, but of course we have the 49ers fan getting in here. All right, man.
It just makes it seem like are people online like searching
How can I upset these
how can I
Vikings
throw these
fans
guys
even
real
more?
quick? It's okay. It's okay. I
Sad
like it.
Sad Vikings fan.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
why? Go ahead, Tony.
Well, to PK Pally, I agree. They're right. I mean, if you look at just the numbers, they're probably the most overachieving team statistically. Probably if not ever, at least for quite some time. And that's kind of what I meant about the Vikings, or I should say, us Vikings fans, just being so elated with how fun the season has been. Not to really stroke PK's ego here. I don't think there was a chance, and that the Vikings were going to beat San Francisco. Nor do I think there's too much of a chance that the Giants are going to have much of a chance either. Granted, they'll play. Who will they play? They will play.
They are.
I guess we'll figure it out.
They are going to play San Francisco because it's 4 and 5 tomorrow night. Yep.
Okay. So seeding wise doesn't really change anything. So
no, they'll be going to. I take that back.
Philly.
They'll be going to Philly.
Philly has to play the lowest seed available.
Yep, they'll be going to Philly. So, and by the way, the Giants nearly beat Philly. Was it a couple weeks ago when? Last week when the Giants rested pretty much all their offensive starters, and they, with Davis Webb, made that a game at the end, by the way. So maybe the Giants surprise people. I think the Giants' offense becomes a little bit easier to defend when you get on grass. But they showed what they could do on turf today, and boy, oh boy, of course, also showed what they can do against the worst defense in the league. Anyways, moving on to end of the season awards for the Vikings. This is supposed to be a happy moment, but it's very hard at this point. Let's go ahead and
Daniel
give
Jones for Hall of Fame, right?
That's right. Yeah, Daniel Jones, the next Steve Young, the next Josh Allen, because that's who old Dayball worked with before. So.
That's right.
But end of season awards, offensive rookie of the year. This one is kind of hard to come up with here, right? Like, I don't know. Ed Ingram is like the guy that you can't really give it to because he's been so bad. But it's like, well, who else do you give it to? We've barely seen Chandler. What were you saying there, David?
He's the only one, the offensive rookies that has been playing.
Yeah.
Everyone else has been on special teams.
Yeah.
So you almost have to give it to Ingram.
Asterisks by default.
I mean, the only other person I can think of, but to your guys' point, he didn't play until way late in the season, would be Naylor. But again, what we saw him, what do you have? 3
just
catches?
With those glimpses, we're giving it to Naylor because those were better than anything Ed Ingram did.
Well,
but I do have hope for Ed Ingram because go ahead there. Go ahead there, Tony.
Oh, I was just gonna say with Ingram, I mean, I'll give him this. He's been playing all year, and as we've already pointed out, our point is that he has struggled, but I think he's going to be fine. Ultimately, I think he'll be better next year. And if we're looking towards next season, he'll be better served with all this time that he's played this year and being able to jet offense and the other offensive linemen. So while this year wasn't great, it certainly had its moments of really bad and good. He had moments of looking okay. I think we will see him grow as a player next year, and I think all it will be for a positive reason going forward.
Yes, and to the point there of Mr. Jericho, who still hasn't told us his favorite team, which is probably wise on his part because he is probably a team that has been eliminated already. So, or he'll just comment and say that he's a fan of whoever's left because obviously they've had a better year. But anyways, love you, Jericho. Appreciate you being in here. But anyways, yes, to your point, the Vikings defense was bad, and that's probably a big reason why the crowd was not a factor in this game. Like, you know, they could have had miscommunication, and it didn't matter because Daniel Jones still had time to throw the ball, or they threw it really quickly. And that's the thing. Like, people will ask, well, where was the defensive pressure in this game? Well, you know what happens when you get rid of the ball really quickly and the defensive players are playing off for 90% of the game? Daniel Jones has the wherewithal and the ability to get the ball out really quickly, and he did that today. And not only that, but he also showed what he can do with his legs. I saw somebody say the Vanilla Vic. That was their thoughts on Daniel Jones, the Vanilla Vic. I love that alliteration, like that by the way. Yeah, that was pretty great. I did have to laugh at that, but anyways, it's been interesting. I think Jalen Naylor, if he had played a little more, we'd give it to him. But yeah, I do think we have to give it to Ed Ingram. I do like the flashes that Jalen Naylor gave, though. I think he could potentially be a wide receiver 4 in this offense. Jalen Reagor obviously proved not. Maybe there's a chance next year if he learns the route tree, gets a little bit more teaching from like a guy like Justin Jefferson. Can he be a mentor to this guy that's really struggled in his career so far? That's something I would love to see. But defensive rookie of the year, let's move over to that side of the ball. Unfortunately, our top 2 defensive players that could have gotten this award didn't play. So we got to go somewhere else for this. And God, it's again just a really hard thing to find because this rookie class has just not been good this year, for one, which doesn't mean that it can't still be good. But I'm gonna have to say Brian Asamoah, I think, because honestly, that's, unless anybody else has an objection to that, like that's about the only thing that I can think of. Go ahead there, David.
I'm going to give it to Duke Shelley by default.
He's not even a rookie, though, right?
He's not a rookie, but the majority of snaps that he's played since he's been with the Vikings is way more than he ever did with Chicago. So
yeah,
I'm going to give it to Duke Shelley.
Yep. Not rookie, but we didn't have any others. That's the asterisk. Yeah. Yeah, but no, Duke Shelley, like, sign him to a contract extension. Like, I don't necessarily want him out there all the time, but I'd say if you have him as your fourth cornerback on this team, like, you could do worse than Duke Shelley. Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously spot start, when half your corners go down, which we saw the Vikings have with Caleb Evans and Andrew Booth Jr. this year. But go ahead, David.
To your point, though, Carson, there's a problem with that also, too. If you sign Duke Shelley and you bring him back, he's going to be just like Cam Dantzler was. Because the first year Cam Dantzler played as a 3rd-round pick, he played because the Vikings had nobody. So it kind of gave him the confidence of actually going into being a starter, and he didn't actually earn a starter. So the next year he wanted to be a starter, and he kept getting benched, and he couldn't take that. So you got to kind of –
and I think that's what's happened to Cam Bynum too, by the way.
Yeah, and that's it's real hard to manage these guys, especially when they've been playing, football for all these years and they've been the top guy on every team that they played. If the Vikings go out and draft a corner in the first round, he should start, right? Right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with Duke Shelley?
Yeah.
Now he's crying.
Yeah. Now he's the 4 or 5. But
yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, he was on waivers, and nobody ahead of the Vikings on the waiver wire picked him up either. So
that's true. But a guy's going to always try to, make the most of his snaps that he got. So,
but yeah, maybe the Bears want him back now after that performance.
Maybe.
Put him on the outside. That's the only bad thing about it. Like, I think Shelley got maybe a little fortunate that Darius Slayton didn't beat him on that deep ball in the end zone. That throw was not great. Had that throw been a little bit better in position by Daniel Jones, I think Shelley would have gotten beat, or he would have been called for PI or something, because when you're 5'8", you're going against a 6'3" or so wide receiver in Slayton. Like, that's
Yeah.
good luck on that one. But
And that play that Duke Shelley, when he just got pretty much just bull rushed, the guy just threw him to the ground on the swing pass, and I thought it was holding, but it was actually Duke was holding for dear life because he just got blown up so bad. That's another thing too.
Yeah. And another thing for special teams awards, usually don't hear special teams rookie of the year, but I think you'd also have to go with your boy Ryan Wright once again for that award, because he was obviously the best. But it's interesting you mentioned Canning Daniels, David, and I don't know if I would go that far, but I will say, like, earlier in the year, we were all like, yeah, this Viking special teams is really good. And we were kind of at the point, I was getting close. I was like, maybe I should put out a video and say, give Matt Daniels the defensive coordinator position. Now I've gone away from that completely probably now, but it was at that point where it was with Donatel. It's like, okay, we got to change something. I don't think this is what KOC envisioned with this defense. Like, I don't know what his vision was, but I guarantee it wasn't, oh, let's give up 30 points a game or whatever, it was by the end. But it just, it was hard to watch. It really was, especially when you get so used to those dominant defenses under Mike Zimmer. Like, now you've had 3 years in a row where the defense has just looked like fill in the blank.
Yes.
But Tony, let's get your thoughts here. Any thoughts on the end of the season awards, or any other thoughts from this game?
It's a tough way to end the year, but I'm going to sound like a broken record, and I hope everybody knows we're going to continue to make content, even though the Vikings are out of it now.
Till we die, baby.
Yeah, we're going to continue to pump out content for you, because at the end of the day, we are all big football fans, not just Vikings fans. So while I'm disappointed that the season ended, and certainly ended in the fashion that it did, with this conservative Kirk throw behind the sticks, we've already talked about it.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just rattling everybody up again, but while that's all really disappointing, I'm so happy that this season, it was so much fun. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet both of you, so there's that.
Yeah.
I see now getting a little sentimental now. But no, it was a really fun season.
Don't cry, Tony. Don't cry.
I know, but there are definitely changes that'll need to be made. And David, I appreciate your point with the special teams, because it's something I didn't really think of. So that'll be another area that will need to be addressed. But I think there's a great foundation to build off of here. Overall, I've been happy with O'Connell as a coach. I just think he needs the support on the defense from somebody who's going to be able to put together a defense that is going to create pressure, because it's like, and David, you talked about this a little earlier. And actually maybe it was Carson. So it was either Carson, if it was you or David. Either way, one of you made a really good point, which was with Zimmer, we had this, archaic offense, but we had this really good defense, and the scheme itself was also good. The problem is that we just started to lose it on the personnel side, and there was other issues too. But ultimately, we did kind of trade one thing for the other, because while, to your point, I think you did say this, Carson, while the defense was pretty bad the last couple of years for Zimmer, at the end of the day, we did kind of trade out a really good defensive scheme for a better offensive scheme. But now the defensive scheme we have is really bad. And I'm going to continue on with that narrative, by the way, because I do think that our players are serviceable. Obviously there are holes to fill, but as bad as this team looked, it's more than personnel. Like that's personnel mixed with a scheme that is not good. And this NFL, the current NFL, is built on big plays in the passing game and blitzing and pressure on the defensive side of the ball. So we've got the offensive side figured out. Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, we're built for big plays. We like big plays, right? But then the defensive side of the ball, you can't just sit back and play the soft man or soft zone where you're playing 10 yards off the ball when it's 3rd and 3. Like, it's just, you can't do it. It's not winning football. The rules are designed around catering to the offense, which means you have to force pressure. So no, Donatello needs to be out. We need to have somebody that's willing to come in and innovate on the defensive side of the ball, because it feels like, again, now we've got a progressive offense and an archaic defense. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, certainly excited for the offseason, excited to see what we do. And I have a lot of faith in Kwesi with our new GM. I think the ownership group is willing to write checks. We know they are. And I think Kevin O'Connell is the right guy for the job too.
David, go ahead with your final statement.
It just basically goes back to what I said before. Ed Donatello has to go and Daniels has to go. And if Kevin O'Connell does not fire both of those guys, we're going to be sitting here next season saying the same things, because I'm just looking at it right now. There's no way Lewis Cine gets hurt on the kickoff. He's your first overall pick. Look at the draft class that came in there. That these guys never really played, and majority of them are on defense. If you are going to draft heavy on defense, you need those guys to play defense. And if Kevin O'Connell if he's trying to be a nice guy and is this old grizzled veteran to where I know more football than whatever, then we're going to be in the same situation. I just feel, I just basically feel like Kevin O'Connell now you got to put your big boy pants on and figure out what you're going to do with your coaching staff. And you're gonna
don't think that this defense is going to magically get better in year 2 of this scheme.
Exactly.
Like that you cannot do. And, I hope that Kwesi and the front office talks to the Wilfs this offseason and say, hey, that's it. This group, there's got to be changes that are made, because if you run this same group back again next year, I guarantee you are not winning 13 games again. No chance.
You're not.
I'm not saying this whole season was luck, but there was definitely some luck involved, and there were key things that happened at the right moments. And that is why the Vikings were in the position they were. And those key things did not happen in the key moments for the Vikings today. Like they didn't get the strip sack. They didn't get the interception. They didn't complete the 4th and 8 pass to Jefferson, or 4th and 18 like you did in Buffalo. None of that Minneapolis miracle stuff. None of that crazy things that have happened throughout the course of the season. No Kirko chains arriving on that final drive. There was nothing. It just fell flat in the end. So I think that's what you need to tell the Wilfs. One of them needs to just say, "Hey, this is the part where we get to the rebuild. We were competitive, and now here's the rebuild."
Blow it up. Yeah, but Carson, the other thing too. Me and my cousin, we talk about this all the time, and we just talk about this today. One of the hardest things Kevin O'Connell is going to do, if he goes out and get a young guy for defense and they have a good year, he's gone.
Yeah.
like that's the thing. Like if he goes out and gets a Brandon Staley or anybody that's young and innovative and they have a great year, they're going to the next coaching job the following year. So then you have to go right back to Ed Donatello.
Yep. And this is why San Francisco is so good, because they have a really good offensive coach. And yes, they had a really good defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh. But guess what? they plugged and played D'Amico Ryans, and not that I don't think D'Amico Ryans is a bad coach. I think he's a really good coach, and I think he's going to get a head coaching job. He should get a head coaching job this offseason. But when you have so many good defensive players, it almost doesn't matter. I said almost doesn't matter who's calling the plays, because you could literally, I'm not saying Ed Donatel would be great in San Francisco, but I think he would be more successful running that defense over there, because they do have more younger players, more athletic players on that defensive side. And I think that, when Ed's scheme, and when he doesn't cater to what his players do well, and that is one thing that I think you've talked about, David, and I know you've talked about, Tony, is like, you haven't put these guys in the best position. You haven't put Harrison Smith in the best position down at the line of scrimmage, like you said, Tony.
Yep.
And you haven't been able to give Harrison his free reign. Patrick Peterson, maybe you've done a good job of putting him in the best position for the most part this season. But those linebackers, my goodness, what are they doing? They have no chance. They have no chance at all against Saquon Barkley out there. My goodness. It looks like Eric Kendricks is running a 5.40 here, and Saquon's running a 4.3, 4.40 out there. It's like, what do you expect? Like, and even against like wide receivers, like Kendricks is not supposed to be running stride for stride with a wide receiver. So yeah, part of that is on the scheme, but again, part of it is some of this old defense that's continuing to play. Got more Packers fans in here. Yeah, Skol, LOL. Appreciate the haters coming out at the right time. So, but anyways.
Yeah, I mean, one thing
Tony.
I want to talk about too is that, when I see these players and they're so far out of position, that's what I mean by schematically something is wrong. And maybe it's not even that schematically something is wrong with like, oh, it's the 3-4. It's just literally the play calling. Like, it feels like it's either that our personnel is so bad that we need to go through a massive overhaul, or the other side of it would be we're getting absolutely obliterated and outcoached on the defense. And that's, I think, more of what it is, because whatever we're doing has become so predictable that it just, guys should not be that open. They shouldn't be able to create, it's like they're parting the Red Sea when, on these run plays. The other thing too, and sorry to go back to Kevin O'Connell, this actually gets away from Donatel, but I tweeted this earlier. I think I told Carson when we were just talking earlier this week, or maybe it was last week. It doesn't matter. But I don't know if we all said this together or if this is a private conversation I had with one of you, but maybe mid-season I made the comment, how nice is it that on first down, I don't know if we're going to run or we're going to pass. And it felt like for the last maybe 4-5 games, including this game today, if it's first down, we're running the ball. It was like, what do we got? Mike Zimmer calling the plays again? It was like, yeah, we ran the ball with Calvin. -1 yard. Great. So now it's 2nd and 11, or it's 2nd and 9. It was like, what are we doing? Because now I'll tell you, that started to bug me, and I saw it a whole bunch today. And I get that they've got, they're trying not to telegraph things, but my goodness, if I can pick it up, I guarantee the defensive coordinator for the other team's picking it up. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if they're just, they feel like they have a better chance, and I get by the numbers. That's why a lot of teams like to run on first down. But guess what? That's why Zimmer liked to run on first down a lot too. And it became so predictable that maybe by the league numbers, it makes sense to run on first down. But for the Vikings numbers, it was not a great, recipe for success. Because I saw it today again. Run on first down, get negative yardage, maybe a yard. So you're always in 2nd and long. It's just, and I get some of them work, but boy, I don't know if you guys saw that or not. And I know we're opening up a whole other can of worms.
And just to piggyback on what you said, Tony, like, I hear what you're saying, and that's a high concern, because how innovative are you? How innovative are you with your offense until you're not? There's only so much things you can do within the NFL constructs of an offense. So basically, like you said, the beginning of the year, he had all these nice little plays and doing different things on first down, and he reverted back to the old grizzled veteran. Is that going to happen next year? Because now the thing about Kevin O'Connell, the film is out now on what he likes to do. So whatever you did this year to make it successful, you might not be able to go back to it next year and be successful. So,
and please never run that 3rd and short trick play again. My Lord.
Yeah, let's not pass it back to Kirk Cousins. By the way, did you guys think? Did you guys think
just hearing that is so funny?
Why like pass it to anyone else? Like I don't understand. But I don't know. Yeah, but he's passing it back to Christian.
I do think Greg Olsen made a good point. I think the Vikings thought they were going to get man coverage on that play, and they ended up getting zone coverage. I do think he was right on that, but still.
Did you
Kirk,
guys...
and here's another thing, Kirk Cousins, he did it once or twice in the game, but he's got to get better at these audibles at the line of scrimmage. Like he needs to be better at reading the defense and saying, okay, here we go. You know, like we're even seeing Brock Purdy, for crying out loud, making these audibles at the line of scrimmage. And we've seen Kirk do it this year, but we need to see more of it. Like he needs to be able to read, okay, here's a blitz. Okay, make sure we get an extra guy in protecting here. And I know part of it's on O'Connell because we get this play call in late all the time. It seems like we didn't have a delay today, thank goodness. But yeah, there's just a time when the luck or the everything going your way runs out, and here it was. And the Vikings are not a good enough team, especially defensively, to overcome when the luck or the good things run out. Like we even saw, like with San Francisco, like there was some things that didn't go their way in that first half. And you know what? They said, so what? We're going to go ahead and smoke them in the second half. It's like, and I just don't think this is another thing I'd like to see from O'Connell. I know this is the longest final statements in the history of final statements, but Kevin O'Connell needs to put the hammer down in situations like, okay, well, I guess we got to, stop being aggressive here. Don't want to throw an interception. No, get aggressive. Go up by 14, go up by 17 points. And now I know that's hard to do with this defense, but don't stop being aggressive. But anyways, that's one of my rants. I'm sure I'll have many coming up this offseason. Cousins sucks. Dakota Beer Drinker 74. What a name.
I have something to say. So if you're still with us, I was going to say Dakota Beer Drinker. I don't think that Cousins sucks. I think that the perfect embodiment of Kirk Cousins is the 2022 Detroit Lions, where they don't suck, but they're not really good enough. And that is about where Kirk Cousins is. I don't think you can say that he sucks, but is he going to win the Super Bowl? I don't know. And that's where us Vikings fans are going to be for certainly heading into this offseason is this guy good enough to lead us into a Super Bowl? And if not, then we need to start obviously looking around. And I know we're running long today's episode, but
that's all right.
Maybe as we get into next week, Carson and David, we'll start to put together some content for you guys and talk about certainly looking at the future of this team. And certainly that's what I'm looking forward to. We can set our eyes to the next season. I also think that we'll be doing some content on just the playoffs in general, because I'll certainly be watching just because the Vikings aren't in it. I'm definitely going to be watching and certainly excited to see how the rest of the playoffs unfold.
Yeah. And yes, he was not as good as Daniel Jones. I agree, but Kirk Cousins also didn't play against the worst defense in the league. So
did you guys notice? Notice when Ed Donatel tried to do something different? He started blitzing Shannon Sullivan.
That did not go well.
And he left the guys wide open.
Yeah. But I mean, what's the difference?
Right.
What's the
Right.
difference?
Like I'm sitting there
Because
thinking, like, that's a guy who's trying to keep his job, saying maybe he's gonna get in, maybe he's gonna get it, and he doesn't get anything. And
hey,
it's
Grayson,
like, come on.
got an appearance from Grayson there. But
My
no,
son
you're
made me a
right.
card because I'm sad.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
As long as it wasn't 41 donut, I'm okay.
Yeah, it was competitive, which again is not the goal. Damn it! We want to win the whole dang thing, but it does get to a point where yes, you want to be happy the way the season went. I do think though, let's give Kevin O'Connell credit. He squeezed as much juice out of this team as he could. I think that is, maybe they could have won or most of the juice. Like they could have maybe if they would have won today with a few better play calls and one or two plays going their way. But for the most part, you're out on O'Connell.
Yeah,
you're ready to axe him after 1 year
because what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing what happened when Dallas fired Parcells. Right when Dallas fired Parcells, I think they hired Jason Garrett. They go down there and they have
such a bad hire.
And they have a great season, right? They have a great season, but then they stay in purgatory the next couple of years. The reason why they had a great season the year after Parcells is because those players were disciplined. And Kevin O'Connell has this loosey-goosey attitude of, yeah, you guys can wear 9 spikes. No, you guys don't have to. You get what I'm saying? So I'm just being my honest opinion.
I hear you there.
My honest opinion, I think in this 13 wins, I give it to O'Connell, but Zimmer had that team, structured, disciplined, ready to go because how he ran the team. If next year this team gets a lot of penalties and everything like that, that's gonna be on O'Connell. So I don't know.
I think you got to have the balance. I think that's really the key because while I agree with you, David, I think that especially the Green Bay game, that was a really good example where you needed an adult in the room to say, nope, this is what we're doing. I kind of don't care if it's a little uncomfortable. It's going to be really uncomfortable because you're going to be slipping all over the place. So you're going to wear these, and this is the only way we're going to be able to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
I think the flip side of it too, though, is you have to also, because look, these are guys, in their mid-20s, and a lot of them are making, more money than certainly I think I can ever imagine. The superstars are making more money than the coaches.
Right.
And at the end of the day, guys are not going to be receptive to people treating them like children, especially when you got young millionaires. They're not going to do it. So you got to at least let them feel like they have a seat at the table, but you have to mix that in with an authoritative type of a feel, like I still kind of rule the room a bit, and but it should feel like a collaboration, and I think that's what he was trying to do. But right, to your point, I mean, I think that those moments, what we have to hope for, those were teachable moments and moments that he can learn from, where he won't make that mistake in the future. But to your point, David, yeah, if we continue to see some of these unforced errors, where I think if we had a bit more of a disciplined team, we would see less of it. But I wouldn't say this, this isn't the Mike Tice Vikings. This isn't the, the Mike Tice Vikings and the Love Boat.
They were loose.
Thank the Lord.
That was, yeah.
That was a loose punch.
Fred Smoot. Yeah, it was. I don't know if they're going out on the old Lake Minnetonka and then he cruises.
No Love Boat
soon.
action.
Yeah. But I do think that they probably could be run a little bit of a tighter ship than.
It's just too funny because there's the boat trip. There's nothing worse than that ever. Like that's a loose team there. Like,
yeah,
I've got one last thing I want to say. Do not be fooled. That is my statement to the Wilfs. Do not be fooled that this team is a 12-win team perennially, and you just have to make 1 or 2 changes here. Because this team is not going to win 12, 13 games next year if this roster barely changes. Yes. Because the personnel, Ed Donatel, obviously, for multiple reasons that we've talked about, mainly just because he is archaic and doesn't know how to adjust, or when he does adjust, it's too late. But I think they really need to look themselves in the mirror and say, I know we want to win this now, but unfortunately, we do not have the pieces to do it. And we need to rebuild. It sucks to hear, I'm sure, because they are getting up there in age and they want to see a championship before they die. But you've got to go into a rebuild. I hate to say it. And, I think it's going to take 2 years to fully do it and maybe more. But because I think Kirk Cousins is for sure here next year, I don't think there's pretty much any question about that. But can we rebuild halfway this offseason and next offseason? You're going to have to cut some guys that you don't want to cut, and you're going to have to trade some guys you don't want to trade. But some of these guys are getting up there in age. Dalvin Cook is cooked, I still think. I mean, he had some good runs in the game, but like that time that he went down, like spinning out of a tackle, like I was just like, dude, you got to stay up right there, man. Like I think there's running backs in the league and in the upcoming draft that probably are able to stay on their feet there and get a first down, keep on rolling. I'm just out on Cook. I'm out on paying running backs big money, by the way, which, by the way, Thielen, here's some of the big contracts, and we'll get into this, obviously. We'll have a whole Carson and Tony and David GMs episode coming up.
I would love that. I would love that.
The new GMs of the Vikings, and you're all scared out of your shorts right now. But Thielen, $19 million cap hit, $14 million for Cook, Harrison Smith, $19 million, O'Neal, $19 million, and Kendricks, $11 million next year. Those contracts are not all staying the same. And I would dare to say, if I had to put money on it, I bet that 2 of these 3 players are gone next year, of Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith, and Dalvin Cook. I would say 2 or 3 of those players, and I think it's going to be Cook, and I think it's going to be Kendricks are gone next year.
I agree.
And it's hard to say it, but the rebuild starts now. Here's another part I was going to mention that I totally slipped my mind. Look at what Philadelphia did. Like, they won the Super Bowl and they didn't run it back. They didn't. Oh yeah, well let's just keep Nick Foles and we'll just run this thing back. They started to rebuild. They started to go get a young quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and they got some younger pieces on offense and defense. And look at them now. They're a Super Bowl contender. Like, I hate Philadelphia for a lot of reasons, but they are doing it right. They are doing what the Vikings need to take notes on. And I'm a little skeptical that they'll do it, but I think seeing what the Wolves probably saw today, I think they might be like, okay, there's some things that need to happen here.
Yeah.
So, CT, appreciate you getting in here. Richie James stepped down on that 3rd and 5. Okay. Should have been challenged. All right. Yeah, we talked about this today, and to Caden's point, we'll talk about the Vikings quarterback and drafting a quarterback potentially, or trading for somebody at some point here this offseason. But to CT's point, we talked about the officiating and how bad not only today in this game it was, or at least I did, but it was so bad. I haven't watched any of this Bengals-Ravens game, which I'll probably consume here shortly, but the second half, it looks like the first half's almost over. But I think that the NFL really needs to get better at officiating. One thing I will say, we're going way long here, but my goodness, I have rants to go on here. The NFL did do a really good job with these expedited reviews today. That's one thing I will give them credit to.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Agreed.
Great. That was great.
Yep. I think that was really good, but I think there should be them intervening in some of these. Okay, his foot was out, like he was saying, CT was saying, you need to say his foot was out, and maybe they just totally missed it. But when you have 5 guys or whatever looking at things, like, you should be able to find that out. When Andrew Thomas false starts and you don't call it afterwards then. Like I would rather them call it after the play's taken place than miss it entirely and say, oh, too late, we missed it. It's like, fix it in that moment or don't even bother apologizing. I'm so sick of the NFL with their, oh, yeah, we missed this call, and, oh, well, it could have impacted the game. Well, too bad that you figured out that you missed this call now. It's like, what do you want us to do now? It's like, fix it in the moment so it doesn't have to be us complaining about it after the game. Yeah. That's my thought. But
yeah, I think the officiating has been really consistently bad the whole season.
Yeah, and I think it's even more magnified here in the postseason.
Yeah, postseason,
yeah. But all right, well, I think that's it. I could go on for quite a while. I'm sure we all could, but I think that's going to be a wrap on the show. David, appreciate you joining us for a majority of the season. Tony, having you be a part of this, it's been amazing. You're a lifesaver. You're a great content creator as well. Now I'm going to get emotional here. So that's the cue to call it. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure if you haven't yet, subscribe, like this video. And as always, Skol.